Okay, Indiana's Money Follows the Person program helps individuals move from qualified institutions back to their communities. It offers 365 days or 366 days in a leap year of home and community based services. A qualified institution is a setting where an applicant must reside and have appropriate level of care to meet CMS's requirements to receive MFP funding. Those institutions include nursing facilities, intermediate care facilities, also known as ICFs, um, or supportive group living, SGLs, and comprehensive rehabilitative management needs facilities, also known as CRMNFs here at BEADS. The goals of MFP are to increase home and community based services in order to reduce institutional care, maximize Medicaid fundings so individuals have the freedom to choose where to live in their community. MFP also uses community supports and services to help individuals remain in their community of their choosing and to improve HCBS availability within Indiana. Home and community based services, also known as HCBS, are person centered care services that are delivered in the home and community rather than an institutional setting. HCBS prioritizes individuals living in integrated settings while accessing community resources and participating in daily activities. A few examples of home and community based services are adult day services, community transition, home and vehicle modifications, case management, and transportation. A full list of services can be found at the link, and these slides will be presented to you once the training is completed.
Individuals who are interested in utilizing the MFP program must meet specific eligibility requirements. These requirements must be met before being approved for the MFP program. And additionally, some of these requirements must be maintained throughout the entirety of the individual's time on the MFP program. The first is that the individual must reside in Indiana and in a qualified institution that Brittany mentioned on the last slide. Specifically for individuals on health and wellness or MFP pathways, qualified residents include nursing facilities. For individuals seeking the MFP CIH program, qualified residents include nursing facilities or intermediate care facilities such as SGLs or CRMNFs. The individual must live in this qualified institution for a minimum of 60 consecutive days without interruption. This 60-day time frame is calculated from the date that the MFP application is submitted. There cannot be any interruption within those 60 days. Interruptions for eligibility purposes only is defined as an instance where the applicant is discharged to their community, such as being incarcerated or hospitalized in a psychiatric facility for any length of time. Individuals in nursing facilities must be assessed for nursing facility level of care by LCAR and have level 2 long-term approval. An applicant must be approved and continue to require at least the level of care which had resulted in admission to the nursing facility for long-term care. Another eligibility requirement is that an individual must be eligible for Medicaid under an HCBS waiver category. Some examples of permissible HCBS waiver categories include disabled, age, or children ages 1 through 18. More information can be found at the website as well as at the end of our application packet, which we will present in a couple slides. Additionally, the individual must have Medicaid active for at least 1 day prior to discharging from their qualified institution. If the individual discharges from the institutional setting before being approved for the MFP program by the MFP team, they cannot retroactively apply for the MFP program and are no longer considered eligible. One of the new processes that we are implementing once the pause is lifted is having an individual who is interested in participating in the MFP program complete an informed consent packet, also known as an application for the MFP program. Submission of this packet does not guarantee acceptance to the MFP program. You will be receiving a copy of this referral packet, of this informed consent packet via email. The informed consent packet contains several sections. The first page is an informational guide that provides information to anyone interested in the MFP program. It includes information such as what the MFP program does, the MFP program's goals, eligibility requirements, and next steps after submitting. The second page provides instructions on how to submit the informed consent, as well as the email that the informed consent will need to be sent to once it is complete. The next two pages are the state FSSA form for disclosure of personal health information that is required by the state. This gives the MFP team permission to access health and personal information. The next 3 pages are the actual MFP application forms that must be filled out in order for the MFP team to determine if that individual meets eligibility. Page 6, or the middle page you see on the screen, requires the provider's signature. Page 7, the page at the end on this slide, actually requires the individual or legal guardian signature specifically.
It is important to note that on page 7, the individual's signature, an application would be considered incomplete if we do not have signatures on pages 6 and 7. Okay, next is the appeal section. If an applicant is denied acceptance to the MFP program, they or their legal guardian have the right to appeal the decision outcome. Appeals can be mailed, faxed, or delivered in person to the Office of General Counsel here at the Indiana Government Center South. An example, I know it's hard to see. The appeal information is available and will be sent along with these slides and the informed consent. How to receive MFP services. MFP CIH applicants are assisted by the district office staff, while MFP Health and Wellness, also known as H&W, and Pathways applicants are assisted by the AAAs. Once an application is received and reviewed, a determination will be noted. The individual will then receive an approval or denial letter, and the AAA case manager will be notified of the MFP decision. If an applicant is approved for MFP, they will have 180 days from the date of their approval letter to then discharge the facility to the community. Once the discharge has occurred, their status in the BDS portal will go from pending/transitional to active, and that starts their 365 days of MFP eligibility. If an applicant does not discharge within 180 days of the approval letter date, then their MFP slot will be closed and they will need to reapply for the program. After an individual has received approval for the MFP program, your responsibilities as a case manager are to create a new service plan within the BDS portal, set up an initial meeting with the individual to then begin looking for providers to meet the individual's needs and update the service plan accordingly, plan for the individual to transition to the community, track the active day count once an individual is active on MFP, and track any interruptions that may occur while someone is on MFP.
Indiana's MFP program is specifically designed as a transition program to assist individuals who live in qualifying institutions to move safely to the community and ensure safe adjustment to community living. Indiana's MFP program is not a permanent funding source and can only be used for 365 days. Once a participant has completed 365 days on MFP, they will transition to one of the following approved waivers: the Community Integration and Habilitation, or CIH waiver, the Health and Wellness waiver, or the Pathways waiver. There is a slot reserved for the individual on these next waivers to assure a seamless transition off the MFP program. The transition from the MFP program to the CIH waiver includes the following steps. It is expected that the case managers track active days on MFP, accounting for any interruptions in the BEADS portal. The MFP team will send a tracking sheet to the district offices listing upcoming transitions and any forms that need to be completed and uploaded before the last day of MFP. We also send an email to the case managers with the anticipated transition date. The BEADS district offices are responsible for completing a new CIH level of care. The BEADS portal automatically creates initial PCISP for the CIH waiver and terminates the MFP PCISP in the BEADS portal. This ensures a seamless transition off the MFP program for the individual. The transition from MFP to the Pathways waiver is similar with a few notable differences. It is also the expectation for our ICMs and AAAs to track the active days on MFP and accurately track any interruptions in the BEADS portal. 60 days before the end of MFP, or day 305 on MFP, the AAAs will need to verify and update any MFP demographic information in the BEADS portal. They will also need to verify that the individual has selected a managed care entity. The MFP team will begin sending an email to case managers with the anticipated transition date. Again, the transition from MFP to Pathways in the BEADS portal is a behind-the-scenes process. AAAs will no longer need to create new initial service plans for the next waiver. The BEADS portal automatically creates a new PCISP and terminates the old MFP PCISP. This again ensures the seamless transition off the MFP program for the individual. Finally, the transition from MFP Health and Wellness to the Health and Wellness waiver is again largely the same, without the need for the individual to select a managed care entity, or MCE. Case managers need to track the active days on MFP and again accurately account for any interruptions in the BEADS portal. 60 days before the last day of MFP, the AAA will need to verify and update the MFP participants' demographic information in the BEADS portal. The MFT will also begin sending an email to case managers with the anticipated transition date. Transitions are largely behind the scenes in the portal, again with the AAA no longer needing to create a new initial service plan for the next waiver. BEADS portal automatically creates the new PCISP and terminates the MFP PCISP.
Health and wellness active participants turning 60 years of age and enrolling with a managed care entity. Indiana's Pathways for Aging program is a Medicaid initiative designed to help older adults 60 years and older to stay in their communities and homes by coordinating long term services and supports. Money Follows the Person health and wellness participants will begin converting to Money Follows the Person pathways 90 days before their 60th birthday. The individual will then transfer to the Pathways waiver at the end of their MFP eligibility.
It is an eligibility requirement that the MFP individual has Medicaid coverage throughout the entirety of their days on the MFP program. However, we know that loss of Medicaid coverage is possible due to a variety of reasons. It is the responsibility of the case manager to check and ensure that the MFP participant has active Medicaid. In the event that Medicaid coverage is lost, the MFP service plan must be interrupted in the BEADS portal on the last day of the month Medicaid was lost. For example, if Medicaid ended on July 31st, MFP must be interrupted on July 31st. Begin any necessary steps to restore Medicaid coverage, assist the individual with updating any contact information, or sending in requested documents or renewal forms in a timely manner. If Medicaid is restored retroactively with no gap in coverage, the individual can continue with MFP. The MFP service plan will start on the day after Medicaid was lost. With the example before, if Medicaid was interrupted on July 31st, MFP will become active again on August 1st. Since it is a requirement that the service plan be interrupted, it is possible that the service plan will need to terminate due to the interruption lasting more than 60 days. If this happens, the case manager will create a re-entry service plan. Now, re-entry was not an option while the MFP program was on an enrollment pause, but once we lift the pause, re-entry will be available again. Providers should still be providing the individual with services when Medicaid is inactive. They will be reimbursed for their services once Medicaid is reactivated. If for some reason Medicaid is not able to be reactivated, the provider assumes the risk. In the event that Medicaid is restored, but there is a gap in coverage, the MFP participant cannot continue with the MFP program. If the service plan has not been terminated, the case manager must terminate the service plan on the date that Medicaid was lost and create a new initial service plan for the next waiver on the date Medicaid was restored. For example, if Medicaid was lost on July 31st, but not able to be reactivated until September 1st, MFP will be terminated on July 31st, and the individual will start the next waiver on September 1st. The case managers must track 365 days on the MFP program, including interruptions. The first day on the MFP program is the date that an individual discharges from their qualifying institution. Interruptions are defined as days admitted to a nursing facility, psychiatric hospital, or incarcerated in a facility. These interruptions must be recorded in the BEADS portal. A single interruption can last 60 days or less and are not counted towards the overall total 365 days. Individuals can have multiple different interruptions throughout their time on the MFP program. These will extend their end date or the anticipated end date on MFP. Case managers will accurately account for each interruption and calculate a new MFP end date. Please note that hospital stays are not considered interrupted days, and days spent in the hospital are counted in the 365-day total. We have provided an example below, and hopefully that will help with any questions.
Okay, some important information to keep in mind. MFP informed consents for pathways and health and wellness must be processed by the local ADRC and AAA, as they are the only agencies which hold the contract to process the informed consent packets. The MFP CIH informed consents are processed through the BDS district offices. A reminder, only the MFP central office staff can approve an application for MFP. If a transition occurs prior to receiving MFP approval, MFP dollars cannot be utilized to fund the transition. Case managers are responsible for tracking the active day count for Money Follows the Person individuals, including interruptions. The case manager will also support the transition to the applicable waiver at the end of the individual's MFP eligibility period. If an individual has not responded to the MFP program invitation letter, the case manager will make 3 attempts to contact the individual. After 30 days of no response, after 30 days of no response from the individual, the AAA will send the 30-day letter as a final attempt. This process mirrors the process that's outlined in the Home and Community-Based Services Medicaid Waiver Waiting List and Invitation Guide for the Pathways and Health and Wellness waivers. And here is Casey and I's contact information, as well as the email address mfprequest@fssa.in.gov, where applications and informed consents can be sent to. We know that was a quick overview for Money Follows the Person. There's quite a few questions in the chat here. Okay, we're going to go through the questions in the chat and answer the ones that we are able to, and the questions that um, we need to gather some more information, we will certainly get back to you.
Okay. Hey, you guys, this is Katie with Beads. I'm going to go ahead. I have accumulated your guys' questions, and I think we'll go through them. I'll continue to kind of look at the chat to make sure we don't miss anything. Some questions, if we need to gather some additional information, we'll table those. We'll gather that information and we'll send an email. Like I said, since I've kind of accumulated all of these questions, what we'll probably do is send them out to everyone just so you guys have them in a nice packaged form, if you will. So the first question that we have, if an individual is in the nursing facility and then gets sent out to the medical hospital and then goes back to the nursing facility, do the 60 days restart?
No, you subtract those.
So regular hospital stays do not count against the 60-day total for eligibility purposes. As long as they are not discharged from the nursing facility, days in the hospital can count.
Question 2 from Amanda is, who is able to start applications? Is it going to be the AAAs only or nursing facility social workers?
So that is going to be only the AAAs, as as you are the only agency that holds the contract to process the applications and informed consent. So nursing facility social workers will not begin the application process for individuals.
The next question that we have is, will nursing facilities be receiving this training and have access to these packets, or will they be reaching out to the AAAs to get started?
Nursing facilities will be directed to contact the AAAs to get started. Um, this training will not be sent to the nursing facilities. Um, only the AAAs will work on the applications and the packets for individuals.
Next question, is the disclosure releasing information to the AAAs or DDAR's MFP team?
This is a state required form. So this is for us at MFP to get and obtain personal and health information for the individual. So this is the state's required disclosure form.
The following question, does the BEADS portal have the ability to count the 365 days, or do we have to count those days?
So the BEADS portal does have the ability to count the days, and there is a section in the profile of the individual that has a day count. However, it is the expectation that the case managers do also keep track on their own.
The next question, does the behind the scenes process for moving from MFP, does the new pathways plan automatically move to the MCE system to prevent gaps in services? Does the pathways plan in the portal generate an NOA that is accepted by the MCE to allow continued payment for established services?
So each MCE has their own system. We will work with OMPP to make sure that MCEs are notified ahead of time who will be coming from MFP to the Pathways program, in addition to the MCEs having service plans so that they can model their service plan off of that. We will need to gather more information about if the portal generates notices of awards that are accepted by the MCE.
Thank you, ladies. And I think with that question too, Laura, we'll have more to come on that. We are in process of working with our partners at OMPP simply because the MFP program does kind of hit upon a number of systems. So working with them alongside to get some of these answers answered. So more to come for that one. Let's see. My next question, loss of Medicaid active participant question. If they lose MFP due to a gap in coverage, does the person jump the waitlist line and get a slot for health and wellness or pathways right away? Or do they go on the wait list and have to wait to be invited at the next round of invitations?
That is a great question. They do not get put on the wait list since they had a slot reserved for them as part of being on the MFP program. They technically jump the line and get access to that next waiver right away as soon as Medicaid is restored.
The next question, is there a payment designated to AAAs for managing informed consent packets, or where does that fall under ADRC funding/payment?
Okay, regarding that question, I'm going to put an email address in the chat momentarily. Rebecca McLaren with the Division of Aging will be able to answer questions related to contract and funding and payment questions. I'll put that email in the chat here soon.
The next question, I want to say that's health and wellness. Will the H&W new PCISP be created 60 days prior to transitioning?
The way the BEADS portal works, it is usually created on the day MFP ends. It is not created 60 days prior to transition.
The next question, will there be a waiting list for MFP? Is there a standard amount of time that we should let people know to expect before getting an approval?
There is not a waiting list for MFP, and we hope that there will never be a waiting list. The standard amount of time really depends on how many applications Brittany and I are getting at any one time. We hope to assess them pretty quickly and get through and get back to you as soon as possible. As far as what people should expect, I wouldn't be surprised if they hear back before a month at the latest.
The next question, would the AAA case manager complete the initial or annual, as we usually would, and submit the level of care to Maximus for tracking and BEADS portal update?
Is this question asking about the initial MFP service plan? And Jordan, I believe you're the one who asked this question. If you want to come off mute and clarify, that would be great.
Yeah, so I just to clarify for the MFP, how they're doing and starting everything is with Maximus doing the level of care, and then Maximus is supposed to send it to the AAA, ICM, or whomever the client chooses to start their services and get the service plan going. Will it be managed that way for the will it be managed that way for the MFP, or would SACOA or other AAA or whomever be the ones managing like the intake as we usually would and do like the NRAI or eScreen level of care and just submit that to Maximus so that it can be updated in the BEADS portal?
All right, so I think we're on the same page. I think I understand your question. The MFP program mirrors the health and wellness waiver program. And so in order for the initial service plan to be entered into the BEADS portal, the level of care needs to be completed by Maximus first, and then it moves into the portal after that approval.
So would the MFP referral, like would the nursing facility reach out to Maximus to complete the level of care and then reach out to us?
I'm not sure about the answer to that question. Let us do a little bit more research and get back with you.
Thank you.
The next question, do AAA still enter pay points for MFP? This is not mentioned in the ADRC scope of work. Again, those questions related to pay points and funding can be directed to Rebecca McLaren, whose email I sent with the first question related to payment.
And with that, the following question is, how will we receive the MFP referral?
Okay, so part of that, it's been happening. We at MFP receive a monthly report from Myers and Stauffer with MDS Section Q return to community referral reports. We get that monthly, and from there we will begin sending out again to the AAAs the individuals who said, yes, I would like to return to the community in that MDS assessment. We will send that to you, the AAAs. From there, that is how you get your referral. And from there, you do your intake, your questions with the individuals on returning to the community.
We are aware that the MDS referrals, Section Q, have not been sent out. We are working diligently to get those restarted, and we actually have some questions for you that we had sent out prior to this presentation. We're going to get to those questions at the very end once we get through all of your questions.
So the next question that I see in the chat, if the individual has been approved for long-term care through Maximus within the last 11 months, does a new level of care need to be approved, or can we use that one? If we need a new level of care, who submits that, the nursing facility or AAA? Currently, if a AAA submits a request of someone in a nursing facility, it gets canceled until, and I'm assuming you guys are told that you have to, then the nursing facility will complete that.
So if the nursing facility level of care is still active, if it's within the last 11 months, it can be used. You do not need to complete a brand new level of care. As far as who submits that, if it's the nursing facility or AAA, I'm not 100% sure the answer to that question. We'll need to look into that a little bit more and get back with you.
So the next question, if we could zoom in on the disclosure form, it looks like the one we use for DFR communication, it's a multi-purpose form. If we can't zoom in, that might be a bit difficult, but you guys are going to get a copy of this. So, excuse me, either way, you'll be able to see that form shortly once obviously the PowerPoint and all the additional information is provided.
It is a state form through FSSA, so it is possible that it is what you use for DFR as well.
The next question I can see, ladies, is One of the issues we experience when transitioning funding sources is that providers often do not have an NOA at the time of transition. As a result, is there a payment designated to AAAs for managing informed consent packets, or where does that fall under the ADRC payment? And I think that has been answered. We also are in conversations with a few folks and have pulled your guys' scope of work for that contract. And I think there's an email address right now that we are directing you guys to for questions in terms of that. Do you guys have anything to add on that?
If this continues to be a concern, please reach back out to us and let us know. We will look into if the NOA is not becoming easily available before transition. That would be something we would need to take care of.
The next question I see is, Missy, I think you're wanting to know how many MFP spots are available in the state, and we do have that information.
Yeah, so we have a limited number of slots that can be used per calendar year from January 1st to December 31st. For our MFP CIH population, we have 145 slots. For the MFP Pathways population, we have 120 slots. And for the MFP Health and Wellness population, we have 80 slots available per calendar year.
The next question, will we be able to submit the PCISP prior to the client discharging from the nursing facility to be authorized, leaving only confirmation once they are discharged?
The way the BEADS portal functions is once the individual has accepted the invitation, and I believe 2 case notes are entered in establishing that an initial contact has been made, a PCISP will be able to be created.
Let's see. The next question. If the individual has a level of care in Maximus within 12 months, but has a new level of care after the approval that is not LT, does this disqualify the person?
That is a great question. That is one that we will get back to you on once we gather some more information.
The next question. Is the automatic transfer process from MFP to health and wellness or pathways happening now for people currently in process of transitioning?
Yes, that process is currently happening.
The next question from Melissa, are only MDS considered MFP or anyone in the nursing facility with level of care in 12 months? Or are other referrals just a priority code?
Yeah, so the individual does not have to be an MDS Section Q referral in order to be an MFP participant. It can be anyone in the nursing facility that meets the eligibility requirements. We mentioned the MDS referrals as a way for us to give you referrals to the MFP program, but it's anyone with who meets the eligibility requirements can apply for the MFP program.
The next question, can nursing facilities and assisted living facilities also refer directly to the AAA for MFP referrals? Some of our local facilities have already heard MFP is opening up, and they are ready to start sending referrals at go time.
Yes, nursing facilities can refer directly to the AAAs for MFP referrals. Just like Casey said, it could be anybody in a nursing home, not necessarily just through the MDS assessment referral code. The next comment, if you will, another issue is a lot of tech issues in the BDS portal right now. We are aware of some technical mishaps happening within the BDS portal that is to be resolved, and once resolution is completed, we will be sure to let you know.
So the next question, let me see if I can word this, and so everyone will get it. It's kind of long. So it looks like you guys have a client that her transition, Angela, is coming up, but you're not able to submit her plan, the level of care being out of date. They reached out to Maximus to request an update for this being completed, have only been told they are in queue. Will their level of care need to be updated in the BEADS portal? Does this impact the counting days if we are not able to update the PCISP and the provider insist on pausing services till receiving the NOA?
Jordan, I would ask that you send us an email with more details about this specific individual so that we can also look into it and try to see what's going on.
I see some additional comments. And it looks like the next question is if Maximus will be managing level of care, will they be trained as well as on identifying which clients meet level of care? So just to jump in that, I think we're all kind of thinking about that question, Jordan. Maximus obviously has been trained on completing level of care as they're the new contractor in terms of completing that. For MFP specifically, I know and I believe to be true, Maximus does understand and has had some additional target in regards to funding sources, in regards to our waivers and so forth. So I'd have to ask if specific MFP language was utilized. But again, they have been trained in completing that level of care for all individuals wanting to receive any type of service.
Melissa, could you clarify your question? Will there still be transition funds with the MFP program?
Yes, with prior to the pause on MFP, there were community transition funds that the AAAs utilized to assist individuals that had been in the facility long term and possibly gave up all their personal belongings to be able to buy necessary items like couches, beds, kitchen equipment. There was a whole list of only necessary items that they could utilize the money for. And that's been something that during the pause, we've still had a lot of questions about if it can we still provide those funds, which obviously we couldn't during the pause. So I know that's going to be one of the first questions that gets asked is, are we still going to have those community transition funds when it starts back up?
Hey, can you give us a little bit of background on that question? Where's that funding coming from? Obviously, it's not through MFP at that point in time and or a waiver system through Medicaid dollars. Do we know where that fund came
It
from?
was part of MFP. It was community transition funds as part of the MFP program. So I mean, obviously, I only know what was put out prior, and it was community transition funds at $2,000 per resident that they could utilize. And it always in the 10 years that I've been doing this, it's been there the entire time. So I don't know where it, oh, I'm sorry, Kathy corrected me, 2,500. But it's been here the whole 10 years that I've been doing this, so I don't know where it actually started.
Got it. Okay. So it's a transitional fund that you can claim through MFP through Medicaid dollars. That makes sense. So nothing has been removed, right, from MFP. However, I don't want to say absolutely everyone's going to obtain that $2,500 just because of some of the tweaks and things we've done within the state. So let us make sure that answer is either yay or nay or depends, right? Because sometimes the state can be a bit gray. But let us make sure we can look into that. Yes, it is offered through the waivers, Medicaid waivers, but I want to make sure that it's still offered through MFP programs since the MFP is not necessarily a waiver. So let us get back to you on that one. The next question I see, and guys, if I skip one, we'll go back to and kind of do a review. And like I said, we're writing all these down so we can make sure we give a good question and answer kind of basis at the end and or when we send you guys the information. But Alyssa wants to know about an assessment pro for referral request and intake counseling if MFP is an option. I haven't had my team choose that option yet since the program is not up and running. Should we start now? How soon will we start completing these applications for MFP individuals? And should they be done in conjunction with each other?
We are still figuring out all of the processes for onboarding or starting an individual on the MFP program. As far as using Assessment Pro to refer as MFP, once we actually get the green light to start accepting these informed consents, we will have more information for you on exactly what we need to do to get them into Assessment Pro, into the portal, and all of that information.
I see some questions still about the community transition funds. Like I said, we'll get that information and get that sent back to you guys in regards to it being part of MFP and so forth. So no worries there. I see some comments like on questions. I'm trying to see if there's any new ones. It looks like Amanda wants to know if someone could tell me where that was updated. That would be great. I think your question is next in terms of just your basic question. Do you have any knowledge of the backlog of Maximus level of cares? They're already very behind, and I'm concerned with the addition of MFP applicants will add to that issue. So we are aware that there has been a bit of a backlog, and we are working with Maximus in terms of what that's going to look like and how to make sure we are actively adjusting and so forth. We are aware and are working on that issue. Before we kind of jump into our questions, is there anything that we've missed in the chat? I know you guys are having some additional conversations together, and that's perfect. I know we have some questions that we will, like I said, be having some additional conversations around, and we'll get back to you guys, but I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. I've been trying to go through these and take some notes while we're on here, and I absolutely could have missed something. So if you want to just jump in and yell. We are happy to kind of hear some fluid conversations with us so we don't miss anything.
Can I ask, this is Amanda from Area 6 and 9 live stream. There was one question that I didn't even realize Jordan brought it up. In the past, there was a requirement that we had to go out and do a visit within 3 days. There was like a 24-hour helpline that we had to offer. And then there were like 6 weeks worth of home visits and telephone calls that we had to do for their first so many weeks home. Is that something you guys will be going back to also? Or like that was like years ago, like long time ago. But I didn't know if that's something that's still on the radar or if we're just going to continue monitoring like we typically do any other waiver.
As of right now, the plan is for you to continue monitoring as you are with the other
Okay.
waivers. No expectation to do those frequent visits, up
Good.
to 6 or whatever the, the explanation you provided. No.
Yes. That it was a little difficult to do. So we appreciate that. We will still continue to monitor and make sure that transition went well.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else before we go ahead and, like I said, go kind of mull through a few questions? And I do want to comment, we really do appreciate all the questions. Obviously, as you know, Brittany is new to the program director, I should say, for MFP. And with that relaunch and making sure kind of the new process is up and running and working with multiple systems. We have a lot to do. And then with your guys' help, we're hoping to kind of relaunch this smooth. But again, it's new and kind of improved, if you will. So we do appreciate your patience and we really do appreciate all the questions. And hopefully we'll get some streamlined answers to you guys soon.
Melissa, go. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had asked a question that didn't get responded to, and Misty kind of backed up on that. Is a concern that the AAAs are seeing with us sending out waitlist eligibility letters is that we are seeing some level of cares come through that are concerns of whether or not they are actually meet the level of care. And I have sent some to Holly and Shelly as well, which Misty said she has also. But if this is an MFP application, and since we don't have contracts yet, we don't know what that turnaround is going to look like to make sure that we can stay in compliance. If there is a concern about someone qualifying based on the level of care in Maximus, should we be sending those concerns to you guys, or is that part of the process that you will be looking at with the application and we should just push it through based on the eligibility from Maximus?
Yeah, so when we central office receive the application and informed consent, we will be reviewing um, those eligibilities, and so you can just push those through um, as you would, and then we would review.
And I'll piggyback on that. We are also um, obviously internally having conversations with Holly as well as Shelley. So when they do know some concerns, obviously we are looped into those. But feel free when it comes to MFP to send that information to us and or to Brittany and Casey because they're going to be kind of your SMEs, if you will, for this program. But again, we are definitely talking with Shelley and Holly up here as well. So we'll keep those lines of communications open.
And can I also just ask, and this may come up in the questions you guys are getting ready to ask about MDS, but I was just wondering when we did work groups with the state and they were, starting to build up these contracts, we did discussions about MDS. And one of the things that most of the AAAs agreed on is that the nursing facilities don't seem to know much about the MDS referral. So AAAs tend to get a lot of kickback from the nursing facilities on giving us access to their residents or claiming that that is not how they filled out the MDS questionnaire. So is there going to be training given to the nursing facilities and or copies that the AAA can provide to support us with these referrals as they start back up?
That is a great question, and I don't believe there is any training currently, but it's something we should definitely keep in mind and think about creating moving forward.
And I know you just mentioned, I'm going to piggyback in there, a work group. And obviously the point of today was not only to go through the training, but to have some open conversations with you guys in terms of what's going to help best, right? So I'm keeping that in mind and going to write that down. That may be a work group with all of us to kind of work through if there's going to be some hiccups along the way and or what's going to work best, right? Because and we are very aware of that source of kind of contention, but if in fact the state could offer a form of training and or some form of assistance in that space, we would be happy to do so. We just would obviously need a little bit more information, and like I said, I think that's where we want to collaborate with you guys today to make sure we understand where there are some challenges and how we can best help.
Okay, so great conversation, great questions. Thank you all for the questions and the helping us answer some of the questions within the chat. We are going to stop this recording on the training and transition to some of our specific MDS questions that we've kind of already have gone over. And this can just be an